Hi guys, what up, Viper here, and today we're gonna talk a little bit about especially how to efficiently get those stage 3 tier 5 Illuvials, because they are so rare. And yes, we can, I don't know, trade them off friends, buy them off the marketplace now, and they all still count towards the airdrop points, but realistically most of us will have to go through fusing them, and that is what I wanna give you guys some tips and tricks on about. Now, first of all, what changed about the airdrop thing and the counting thing and whatever, and give you a brief overview on that, on the points, because this is the goal that we have in the game right now, and why I have such a big emphasis on tier 5 Illuvials, especially tier 5 stage 3 ones, because they are the hardest to get. Now, you essentially have to combine a line of Illuvials to get points, right? So on tier 5, you, for example, see Ramfi, Ramfight, and Ramfire. You have to combine all three of them. If you have all three of them, right, then you get 4,000 points. And if you have all 6 lines of tier 5 Illuvials, you get a completion bonus of 15,000 points, which totals to 39,000. Now, if you compare this 39,000 number to any of these others are like way smaller. So this is super worth doing, and this is just the best thing that you can. I think you can easily do tier 4 to tier 1 on the side of mainly focusing on tier 5 Illuvials, because, well, yeah, you're just gonna like find these in the wild, you're gonna throw some shards at them, it's gonna be chill and easy, because yeah, they are just there, right? You don't have to go out of your way. I think the tier 0s, you have to go out of your way, and the total reward 700 points. I mean, that is like completely irrelevant, but you would get a collect them all 10,000 points bonus. I also don't think that this is really worth it. I think just ignoring tier 0s is totally fine, and focusing on the tier 5 Illuvials, and yeah, just completing the tier 5 Illuvials as often as possible. Okay guys, so we figured out the goal is get a bunch of tier 5 Illuvials, because it gives you crazy points and you want to get higher stage versions of those Illuvials. For that, realistically, most of us, like I said, who don't have friends that just send us stuff, or just infinite SEV and we buy off marketplace and whatnot, we have to fuse them. Now, if you fuse them, this is what this little terminal is for. Right, we can click here and we can see, for example, this is a tier 1 Illuvial stage 2. I have 3 of these. Can I fuse this? Nope, I need to reach a experience threshold. It's 4,114, and that number is the same for every tier. So if I want to make a twine, for example, it is also 4,114, even though twine is a stage 3. Or for Jokul a twine is a tier 3 stage 2, and Jokul is a tier 4 stage 2. It's the same 4,000 number. It's the same for every tier of Illuvial, doesn't impact that number. And if you want to make a tier 3 Illuvial, that number is also always going to be 57,000, which is a lot. That 4,000 number, you can realistically get that done in one stage 3 run if you do a bunch of combats and you win all the combats and you play triple Mule in your team. Like, I can just play 3 of these and they are part of my damage dealer squad, right? And I build my team around making them viable and doing this and so on. Probably need some consumables, it's fine. If you use experience buff consumables, it's easier, but if the Illuvial you want to level is also kind of your carry, then it's a bit harder to just use experience experience buff plans on that. So you have to essentially be good at the game and see, well, can you win this by not buffing your carries and damage wise, or your tanks with more tank stats, or whatever you want to level, and can you afford to give the plus experience food, or you would just play a universally strong team and you just throw them in there and the rest of your team has the actual carries and tanks and so on, right? So that is what you kind of have to figure out there, is just basic team building and combat understanding. If you guys want to know more about that, I'm not going to deep dive that. Just go check out. I think I have a lot of shorts and a lot of videos that just talk fundamentally about those things, especially even older ones about positioning and such. So definitely make sure to check those things out if you don't really know how to approach combat and you just start looking into this. Now, I'm not going to dive much deeper into this, because the interesting thing is, for example, here, how do we get 57,000? Because that is a lot. That is difficult to get. So realistically, you just want to play probably at least 3, if not more, Illuvials that you essentially want to farm experience on in your team. So I, for example, am mainly using all 3 of them as my damage dealer source in my team for Overworld, so I can get more experience, just like leveling all of them at the same time, eventually reach this 57,000 mark quicker. So that is just the main idea and a goal and whatnot there, right? So what are the tips and tricks for this now that we all understand what we want to do? First of all, let me put my guys back in my team, because I think it's a really bad habit to forget this. Okay, outside of that, we can look at my team, for example. So it is a bit difficult to use all of the tier 5 Illuvials in one team, I think. That's why I kind of just play a pretty cheap, pretty efficient team at the moment, where I farm experience on my Scarabog. I try to farm experience on Twine, because I think maybe I have to fuse into the Null as well. Maybe catching a tier 3 stage 3 is also going to be a bit more difficult, and then I just have like a little bit cheap supportish Illuvials, because I'm leveling triple tier 5 stage 2. I'm leveling like something that's pretty expensive. I get away doing this because I think I'm pretty good at the game and positioning and judging combats. Maybe you have to play slightly higher mastery cost point Illuvials for the similar slots, but the main idea that I have here is I can just, in every fight that I play a strong team. I can win all of my fights with them, and most of these Illuvials I do want to get experience on. I want to get experience on Scarabog, on Twine, and on these 3. So most of the time I will be playing 5 Illuvials that I want to get experience on. Now the team is built around a Forus, and the team is essentially nature, earth and fire. Now, why is nature, earth and fire relevant? Because depending on which region you travel to, you will encounter different enemies of different elements to a higher likelihood. So, for example, we want to check here just to have some visuals on this. If you go to Abyssal Basin, you will likely face nature and water enemies. So if we want to look at, for example, this pentagram of Hyper, it is fire beats nature, nature beats air, air beats water, water beats earth, and then earth beats fire. So if we are facing mainly nature and water here, that means we probably want to play nature, because nature beats air and water. Nature is not weak to other nature. For example, nature seems universally good here. You probably want to have some fire in there as well, because if they don't have water, then fire is really good versus the nature. And you want to have some air, because if they don't have the nature part and only the water part, then you win with air, right? So if it is mainly nature, you win on fire. If it is mainly water, you win on air. If it is mainly like a mix of both, then you win with nature, because it's not weak versus other nature and it's still slightly good versus water. And at the same time, earth, for example, is probably really bad, because it's only slightly good versus nature and it's really weak versus water. Example for Abyssal Basin, which means an Abyssal Basin leveling nature Illuvials like Ador and like Phosphorus and such is pretty good. Leveling a Squiz, because it's an air dominant Illuvial, pretty good. They get hyper, they get really strong buffs fighting versus these enemies. At the same time, leveling Scarabog, if you are going into Abyssal Basin, is probably going to be tough, because earth is going to be a really weak element here. And then in Brightland Steppes, right, we have mainly air and nature. Therefore, fire and earth and nature are really good, because nature beats air. If they are a nature plus air or very air heavy, nature is great. If they are a nature plus air, fire is even better. And if they are mainly nature, then earth is still really good. So you can level earth, nature and air, earth, nature and fire pretty efficiently in Brightland Steppes. That is why my current team is nature, fire and earth, because I mainly go into Brightland steeps or steps or whatever it's called at the moment. And Crimson Waste is a lot of fire and a lot of earth, so it is really good for leveling Alphys, for example, really good for leveling water Illuvials, and also good for earth Illuvials, because if it's earth and fire, earth is neutral versus other earth, earth is good versus fire. So Scarabog and Alphy really good in Crimson Waste. Now, when I say that you want to essentially build teams around these Illuvials and that they get hyper, you can also build teams just completely ignoring them and just giving them the experience buff things and such. If you have a team for the overworld that you're universally super comfortable with, just playing versus anything, that is certainly a strategy that you can go for. I think that is a bit more the advanced strategy if you're far more comfortable with the game already. And then the whole video is probably not the most useful for you anyways, because then this is likely stuff that you know. So if you are not super advanced, you don't have this super favorite team that you want to play with everything that's just so strong and so on, then certainly trying to just counter the element works. Therefore, if you want to level Alphys and Scaraborgs, you just build a team that has Alfie and Scarabog in it, right? You support Alfie with like some other Psion Illuvials, and you give Scarabog the just a tank consumables. You give Alfie the Omega Power buffing consumables. So, for example, Scarabog, right? You just give Scarabog the healing max health per second consumable. If it is with a lot of fire, the Hyper is going to give it a lot of damage reduction, and this is going to keep it alive forever. And you can give the Alfie the again Omega Power and Energy Region 1, and then you're going to have a really good time winning those fights. And you can just fill your team with like, I don't know, maybe a little more Bulwark Earth and Water Psion, and you're going to be good to go, and you can level Scarabog and Alfie at the same time even. You can even maybe play triple Scarabog, triple Alfie, or triple Goliath, triple Sinalf, and just, I don't know, fill like 2 more Bulwark Water or something, or 2 Bulwark Earth, whatever you want to go for at the moment, assuming that you want to level like triple Scarabog and triple Alfie at the same time. That is something that certainly can work if you use the consumables for that. Same logic applies to the other regions, right? You can go for Ador. Like I could, for example, easily try to fit Ador in here instead of my Nature Doka. The fighter and the fighter bonus is not the craziest in the world. I'm probably still gonna win the fights. In fact, I should be doing this. I'm making this video and I'm not even following my own advice. I should have an Ador instead of this Doka here. The Doka is level 16. I should have a level 16 Ador, honestly. Small thing to max for myself here, but no, outside of that, this is the whole main idea and the main thing that you want to pay attention to when leveling. That you just you can play multiples of the Illuvial that you want to level, because it is good in the fight. If the Illuvial element is countering the element of what you're fighting, it is really, really strong and you're gonna win, and therefore you can probably just afford to play multiples of them. An example is if you have a Psion Illuvial that goes hyper, that is like more than 5 times stronger in Omega Power buff than if you just have like 3 Psion active. So if you have, I don't know, 3 Alphies, that is going to be better, like 3 water Alphies, right? That is going to be better than having an Alfie and like a fire and the earth Psion, and you have 3 Psion active, but the fire and earth guy don't go hyper because you're fighting against earth. The Alfie would go hyper, would do way more damage. And the Ador fighting versus air is going to get hyper, it's going to get a lot of healing to your team. So yeah, but certainly, again, I don't want to dive too much into the specific combat things and so on, but I want to just put a lot of emphasis on that is the main thing that you have to pay attention to when team building and when leveling, and that this is the major trick that you can do, and how you can level multiple tier 5 Illuvials at the same time, and you can essentially sacrifice some traits, because the traits are not as impactful as the bonus that Hyper gives you. In fact, the trait bonuses are super, super insignificant nowadays, I almost think. It is far better that you counter the enemy Hyper and that you have good positioning. So those are the main tips and tricks for the leveling thing and diffusing thing, and that is the realistic way most of us will get those Illuvials. And I also suggest that you just swap out things with friends. Like you could even go, well, one of you guys is gonna go a lot to Abyssal Basin, specializing in that. One guy is gonna go to Crimson Waste, one guy is gonna go to Brightland, and you just swap out Illuvials with each other. Like you trade one Dorios for one Titanor, because the one guy went to Crimson, got a lot of Earth Illuvials, the other guy went to, I don't know, Abyssal Basin and got an Dorios because it's a nature Illuvian, it's more likely to be found there. So certainly optimize like that, trade with your friends, and maybe build trading groups and whatnot. Because, well, if you're gonna have, I don't know, 3 Dorios in the end and only 1 or 2 Titanors, then maybe you're not gonna have the full line, you're not gonna get all the bonuses and so on. So certainly optimize that and figure out how to utilize the combat the best, and level as many of those tier 5 Illuvials as possible at the same time, because that is the big skill expression part here, I guess. But then again, it is mainly just have the right element that I kept reiterating many times over this video, but it is just that important that I feel like I have to hammer this into everybody's head. So I hope that this was, I don't know, pretty much the major tip, and I hope that this will help you guys a whole lot, and I hope all of you guys farm as many airdrop points as possible, get as many collections filled as possible, and you have a lot of fun while doing so. Hope to see you guys in the next one.